We have a fifth line day. We are in gate 1, and the fifth line is called the energy to attract society. The fifth line is the heretic, the general, staying out of everyone's way because they are only to be called on in times of crisis. This is their gift. Here it is a creative gift that only has the power in times of crisis, and only when the direction and expression that it brings has a practical value. We have explored before now that the first line is the true foundation of the hexagram, and the fifth line is something that society wants the hexagram to represent. This doesn't mean that that's what society will get. Here, society would like to see that the first gate is always going to attract society. And of course, it doesn't always. And the fifth line knows that. It knows that you can only attract society at a certain time because everything is about timing. You can't learn timing and you can't teach timing. You're either on time or you're not on time. And you're on time when you're yourself. And you can't be on time if you're not. It's just not possible. This is one of these fifth lines that can be very difficult. Here you have the projection that is coming from everyone that you are the talented one. The moment that there is this constant projection, there's all kinds of interference. You're so talented. Why don't you do something? Fifth lines always present this possibility. And fifth lines can have an enormous advantage in life. If you look at your own fifth lines, you can realize that this is where people are projecting on you, and you always get the positive projection before you get the negative. This is true of all fifth lines. Everybody looks at the fifth line and is hoping for the best out of that fifth line. When they get disappointed, then they project the other way. Then you're the heretic and you're burned at the stake, but you're always given the benefit with a fifth line. In the fifth line of the first hexagram, there's this assumption that you're creative, and that is very attractive to society. Society likes to know that there are those creative, mutative forces around. It's not necessarily conducive to creativity because it's always being pulled into interference. So it's not necessarily great for the fifth line, but it's what society is looking for. In the exaltation, Mars is exalted for its powerful ego endurance, the power and drive to stay with the creative process. To stay with the creative process, but to know that you can't always attract society. You have to wait for your moment. The fifth line here in the exaltation is the one that is riding its ego. Everyone is coming to this fifth line saying, you are so talented. And then they end up just going with that. These are the sort of people who appear on a game show on TV. They did something once back in the day, so long ago, and everyone at that time projected on them that they were really talented, and they never did anything again. But they made a living out of being considered creative ever since. So television is full of people like that. Actually, life is full of people like that. In the detriment, Uranus in detriment, where eccentricity can handicap endurance. Eccentricity that, though attractive, will limit the drive. We love eccentrics. Yeah, they're attractive. But we tend to enjoy them for their freak qualities more than we enjoy their productivity. We end up talking about their eccentricity and exalting their eccentricity and not paying so much attention to whether they really are valuable artists or not, because it's the eccentricity that they're putting out that is so attractive. Eccentricity, as well as being attractive, it can also take away creativity. Individuals tend to be eccentric, they all tend to be a little bit weird one way or another. Take a look at where you have individual gates and see if you can find the truth in this, because it's part of what it is to be individual. But if the eccentricity becomes the focus, then everything else can end up getting lost. This detriment describes Oscar Wilde, among others. He was quoted as saying, "I gave my talent to my life, not my art." You know, he made eccentricity into a life form, really, or a lifestyle. Individuality is the freak circuit. Individuality is the outsider. And what happens to these people is that they just try to live what the outside world wants, which is to be like a creative person. Society has the illusion of what a creative person is, what they look like, how they behave. And they quite like their creatives to behave within these sort of stereotype boundaries. Usually they're going to be a poor drunk, or they live in a garret, or they have terrible problems with the other sex. They beat their children, they steal money, they take drugs. All of these things, they colour the landscape of the eccentric. And once in a while, of course, they may manage to produce things of great beauty that everyone will appreciate. But if you don't really have the depth or the skills, you can still play the role. This is a role gate, after all. So people with the 1-5 fixed in detriment are out there playing the creative role, and everyone is accepting that. And then they get more and more eccentric in order to keep the attention. All individuality is seeking attention. The more eccentric they become, the sooner the whole game is going to crash, and they become famous has-beens. They used to be creative, but they're not anymore. The endurance is that they put up with the interference. They have no choice. They attract society. They can be very valuable in that sense, because as they attract society, they can get mutation out into the world. Unfortunately, for many of them, that attraction comes so quickly in life that they rarely get the chance to mature as a creative force. So what they end up doing is just being able to handle through the ego those forces that are constantly trying to interfere with them. The truth is that what the outside wants from creative people is that they don't bring mutation, because mutation is frightening. But they are allowed to be fools and clowns. They're allowed to be symbols of creativity, and they are allowed to have creative characteristics as long as they do not bring mutation. Society does not like mutation. It makes them very uncomfortable. And sometimes the truly creative people are shunned for that reason. Creative expression as a role, and the mystery and the secret of that goes back to the very first line, which talked about time is everything. Everything about the creative process is about time, because mutation is not something you can truly appreciate in its time. The fact that mutation takes place in any given moment is a mystery to the vast majority of the planet. It takes place in a unique individual, and it will have its time. We live in a different kind of age, in an age where we are able to transmit information and images instantaneously. Wherever mutation is taking place in the world, we can put it out straight away. But time is the quality that distinguishes whether a mutation is valuable or not. The perspective of whether a mutation really has been of value, whether a mutation has really been effective or not, we're usually blind to that in our own time. It's one of the things to realize about why the artistic spirit longs for immortality. Immortality is something really you only hear from the creative spirit, because it recognizes that only time, and a lot of time, is going to distinguish whether something is truly art, whether it's truly great, whether it is truly mutative. Only then. And it will take time before the perspective can be there that looks back and that says, oh, that was something that was really made a difference. That was something that really brought a mutation. Timing is everything. The creative force in the first line recognizes that timing controls the creative process at work. In other words, you can't push it. One has to wait. It comes in its own timing. And the fact of the matter is that, well, even once mutation has taken place, there is no place for expectation. This is not abstract circuitry. This is not the collective. This is not about being the best. This is simply about recognition that mutation has taken place, and one lives with that mutation until the end of your days. Time, generation after generation, in their looking back to see clearly the value of whether something was art, was beautiful, was the right direction, was even a mutation. Only then can it be clear. Gate 2 in the 5th line is called intelligent application. This is a classic for the 5th line, intelligent application. It sounds a bit like practical solutions. Keynote for all 5th lines is practical solutions. And for all 5th lines, they need to know the right time to step in and offer their practical solutions. The right time to attract society, and the right time to, well, just be there. If they don't do that, they run the risk of being the heretic. Yep. They offer solutions that aren't seen as practical at all. And there's the corresponding damage resulting to their reputation, which is something that's always a risk for a 5th line. And it's why they can sometimes be a little bit paranoid. And you know, one of the worst things you can say to a 5th line is that you're disappointed in them. Their solutions didn't work correctly, but to say you're disappointed to a 5th line, that's tough. The moon is still in gate 41, our start codon. It's been there since 234. This is the gate with the gift of fantasy and imagination. It moves next to gate 19 at 1241, another root gate, this time in tribal circuitry. This is the gate of wanting. It's a needy gate. It feels the pressure to find the needs of the tribe so they can be supported. Do they need food or shelter or clothing? Gate 19 can be very skilled at picking up these things, and it can also be quite needy itself at times. This is a gate that responds well to touch. Oh, just a hold of the hand, a squeeze on the shoulder, a quick hug. Touch is quite important to the tribe, on this side of the body graph, at least. Gate 13 takes the moon up into the G center at 2243, the gate of the listener, the fellowship of man, a gate that listens to people's stories, to their experiences. It's part of the collective experiential way. This is about the past and memories and the holding of those memories. And then at 8:38 tomorrow morning, the sun moves into gate 49. This is the gate of revolution in the solar plexus. It's at the other end of the channel to the 19. So we're in tribal circuitry again. This is a gate that is up for distributing the resources that gate 19 has seen the tribe to be in need of. This is the gate of sacrifice. Not everyone is going to get those resources. There's a lot of pressure on this gate 49 to decide who's going to get the resources that are available. This is also the gate of the butcher. So principles as well, it's the gate of principles, and touch is important, 249. It's the gate of rejection, actually. So it's one of those that when the 49 is in a bit of a funk and it's pushing you away, what it's really saying is, I need a hug. And that's a time possibly you can find your strength to hug that 49 until they're able to let it go. I learned that in Ibiza, in that specific context and way. It was an extraordinary event in Ibiza. When the film comes out, the 4% documentary about human design, and both how Ra brought it in and how it affected some of the teachers that those first tier of teachers that Ra impacted in his manifesto way. It's going to be really interesting. look forward to seeing that. Yeah, so that's our fifth line. Yeah, gosh, top of the hexagram tomorrow. Yeah, until then, I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, please go gently.